Should we pretend like we know what we're doing?
That's what we do every day.
Welcome, everybody. We are beyond stoked to be here celebrating a movement of freedom and sovereignty with y'all. And before we get going, and if you don't happen to know this handsome drink of water next to me, I'll introduce him in a second. And if you know him, I'll introduce him in a second. So I'd like to take just a moment. If you could close your eyes, we're going to do just a quick 45-minute meditation. Just to feel your way into this spot that you wouldn't be in if we didn't draw this out in frustrating ways. Then we'll do maybe 2-3 hours of breath work just to get into state. Hey, I was full of shit. Thank you for closing your eyes. Please open them. So, man, I'm curious, just show of hands, who here is a fan of freedom? Yeah. And then I gotta get a little crazy. Who here is a fan of humans? That's kind of everybody. I've got this crazy idea that humans are in fact divine creatures, and I think our divinity needs freedom in order to express itself. If you don't have freedom, our divinity doesn't have anywhere to go. That's why, not to get political, but communism wipes away religion because, without freedom, you don't have people's divine nature expressing itself. And that's why humans are my favorite creatures on the planet. We are just miraculous, and we need a free environment in order to express our miraculousness. So we're here tonight to celebrate freedom and sovereignty in a new way because today is the launch day of the world's first decentralized social media platform built on Bitcoin's Lightning Network, Zion. Come on now. And I built it all myself. I'm so honored to be on the Zion team and to be the founding creator on Zion. It's so humbling. Personally, I just want to talk about myself for an hour and a half. My mission in life is to deliver freedom for people who want it, to help them awaken themselves to their true nature, which is freedom. And I have the privilege of saying no to amazing opportunities in my life because they're not calibrated into my mission of delivering freedom to people. And when I met Justin, he woke me up to a way I could devote my life energy into this planet to help bring freedom to more people in a way that far surpasses what I do online with my awakening videos and my comedy. So when Justin started to explain to me what Zion is and how it actually delivers freedom and sovereignty back to people, I said, bro, I got to get involved. How can I be involved? And Justin was gracious enough to bring me on as the founding creator of Zion. So it's a privilege and a responsibility for me to be here with Zion. So with that said, my good friend up here, if you don't know him, his name is Justin Rezvani. He is the principal founder of Zion. This is his vision that he created a team to birth Zion into the world. He built up a previous company, the world's first, I'm going to butcher this, but whatever. The world's first app that brought influencers to companies. And he had a big exit a number of years ago, and he was delusional enough to think he was done in life. But I think the creative spirit started knocking on his door and wanted to birth this through him. So, Justin.
Hey, buddy.
How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm honored. What a beautiful introduction. What a beautiful opening to be in front of some of our closest friends. And I thought a great catalyst, to begin this discussion is really how did we get to this point? How did we get to this place where me and you are up here talking about something like this, and now it's online. It's in front of a couple hundred people, and a couple thousand people right now are begging to get into it. Yeah. So how did we get here?
Man, This is a great question. And, by the way, how we got here, Justin and I just wanted to have a conversation and explain Zion, why we're here, how do we get here. We thought, well, let's invite our closest friends here in Austin, and then, closest couple 100,000 friends online. Let them eavesdrop in.
Yeah, why not?
And I'd be curious your answer to that. But from my perspective, how do we get here launching Zion, which, by the way, all the available nodes sold out within, 30 minutes. So people are on the waiting list. It's just a dream launch. So I think we got here because it's needed. I think we live in a world where, a big tech, which I am so grateful for big tech. I mean, I piss on big tech all the time. And by the way, I'm not going to stop doing that. But I'm so grateful for big tech. It's allowed many people around the world to connect. I've had the privilege of connecting to millions of people. Yet we've also discovered the limitations of big tech and the social media models. And I think we got here because we've outgrown the old way. We've outgrown the only way that's available to connect online with audiences, creators, one-on-one messaging. And from my point of view, it's kind of like, if you still had the same pair of pants on you wore when you were in third grade, do you think it'd be a tight fit? Do you think maybe you'd be sitting there like, I've maybe outgrown these, but I'll keep wearing them? So I think we're now stepping into something that's needed, that's a good fit for where we're at right now, because I think we simply outgrew the old way of doing things. We've reached the limits of what our freedom-oriented nature can do online. And of course, there was technology limits before, which I think you've broken some of those limits. So I'm curious, how do you think we've got here?
I think what got to this point is I think the technology finally got to catch up to what we all been believing, right? Like, the internet was originally designed to be peer-to-peer. That was the original internet, was a computer sending packets to another computer. And then we went through another phase that we decided to centralize things on the internet. We said, okay, the more efficient way is that we have a centralized server, we can move packets from one place to another, and then that created the conglomerates, that created the Facebooks of the world, that created the Googles. They were great services, but unfortunately it created alternative business models. And I think fundamentally what we're seeing as a society is that the business models are inherently flawed. Facebook is not censoring us for particular reasons because their business model requires it. Unilever does not want to be next to decisive messaging. And so if you wanted to rethink social, if you wanted to rethink human communication, you had to start from the beginning and rethinking the entire business model. And then alternatively, you had to rebuild the stack. You had to think of the tech stack in a completely different way. So I think we got here because of frustration. And I think innovation is continually derived from frustration.
Yeah. So maybe before we get into some of the specifics that Zion has to offer, at the foundational level, you mentioned the tech stack. Zion's built in a way that has never been done before. And it, I don't come from a tech background. I don't inherently care about tech. I care about what tech can do for a person. So with our tech stack at Zion, what is that?
Sure. So I think,
and why is that?
I think this is a really important point, is that if we wanted to rethink business models, if we wanted to rethink how the world could communicate, you can't just rethink, okay, we're going to change this, or we're going to be a little bit, we're going to be a censorship free. You have to completely rethink the entire thing. So our approach, and I do want to also caveat that, we are built on the backs of giants. We're building on the back of the most decentralized currency ever created, Bitcoin. We're built on Lightning, which is a decentralized protocol that's peer-to-peer. We're built on Lightning Labs. We're built on top of open source codes of companies like Sphinx. So we're not doing this just on our own. We're doing it within an ecosystem that is Bitcoin. Yeah. So if you think about a traditional technical stack, what happens is you start building on a database, and then you build an application layer on top of a database, and then finally figure out how to make money. That's usually how every traditional tech stack is built. Facebook was an amazing database that then created an application that connected a bunch of people, and then they dropped ads 4 years later and it's worth $1 trillion. The question was, what if you could flip that entire stack around? What if you could build on top of money? What if you can build on top of the rails that is money? Then you could build an application layer, and then your final piece is a database. Literally flip the entire model around. And what Bitcoin allows for, and what Lightning allows for, is to have flipped the business model. We didn't just build an application on a new type of database. We built an application on top of money. When you send a message in our ecosystem, the rails and the pipes in which you send a message is actually a Bitcoin. It's a file that is Bitcoin inside of the Lightning Network. It's inside of and Ryan's here in the room when he first explained to me a UTXO in my lake house in Austin. But inside of Lightning, it's actually the pipes that are Bitcoin. So we're moving data on top of what we believe is the new internet. People think Bitcoin is just this asset. It's not an asset that you keep on a custodial wallet held by Coinbase. This is a new frontier of the internet. Bitcoin is an app store. And I think understanding that and understanding that we're just one of the first, there's 4 other companies that are doing this kind of stuff, but we're just one of the first that are tiptoeing into this, is that in order to have digital sovereignty, you have to be built on a protocol that's defined by money, not by a database.
So, and I know we've got a lot we want to get through, but if we slow that down for a second into layman's terms.
Sorry, guys.
Or redhead terms. Dude, I feel as dumb as I actually am anytime I talk to Justin. He's just so brilliant. I love it.
No, really.
So, correct me if I say this inaccurately. Is it true when you send a message on Zion or any kind of community interaction on Zion, what you're actually doing is a Bitcoin transfer where I'm sending a message to you, but that's actually a 3-sat payment to you, which is Bitcoin pennies if you don't know. So the Lightning Network transfers that Bitcoin to you, but embedded in that is the encrypted message.
Yep.
So we can send the message completely securely because we're using Bitcoin's Lightning Network. It comes to you, and those 3 sets automatically come back to me. Message is encrypted. You get to read it, where I'm giving you a dumb joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively communication is now a payment, right? Communication isn't just a message through a centralized server. The way you communicate now is communicating through money, and it's immutable because it's being held behind your private keys. You're not doing this in a database. That's why it's so hard to get on this application. It's not oh, here, put your email in. It's I'm in someone's database. It's no, you're actually spinning up your own Lightning node that's assigned just to you through a connection string. We don't have your keys. We have no idea what you're saying to another person because that's how the way it should be. That's how the world works. When you have a private conversation with someone, and that's why I think in a lot of ways, what we're trying to do is humanize a digital experience.
Yeah.
That's our takeaway from what we want to bring to the world.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of anytime you're talking with a friend, you're in your living room, you don't need anybody else there transferring your messages or dictating what you can and can't say. It's humanizing is peer-to-peer. And what I'm hearing you say is with the technology that Zion is built on, it allows you to actually have human interactions online, which in my experience helps facilitate more human interactions, more freedom, more sovereignty in the 3-dimensional world where it maybe really matters.
Of course.
Is that true?
Of course, because what happens right now on the internet is that, let's say I want to say something to you. The problem is there's somebody in the middle deciding if that message should go through. But that doesn't work in the real world. I tell you something, and you should have the ability to either listen to me or not. But we have an arbiter in the middle that decides you know what, Angie shouldn't hear that. She just shouldn't hear that because she can't absorb that information properly. That's the way the current systems are structured.
Well, she can't.
But I think there's an opportunity to build that communication layer in a new way. And then it's not just the part about communication. There's also the concept of true sovereignty in a financial system, right? We didn't decide to build this on some other blockchain because there's thousands of these things. People are making up a new one every day. We decided to build it on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the answer, right? If we know that it's this sovereign digital money, then why not add this other layer that lets the sovereign digital money also move data across the internet? We, again, don't believe that Bitcoin is just an asset. We believe it's the future of the internet. And I think that's a completely mind flip of thinking what this asset can do for the world. Because it's not about Bitcoin, the asset again. It's about Bitcoin, the network. The most powerful decentralized money network ever created.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that because if I rewind my mind 6 months ago, and by the way, I'm curious, who here would rate themselves as a Bitcoin enthusiast? Cool. Half the room. Here, who would rate yourself as like a Bitcoin novice? Like you might know nothing, you might know a little something. Cool. So I used to be dumber than you. Far dumber. So if I rewind my mind 6 months ago, I only thought Bitcoin was like, hey, here's this alternative money. But it's a technology, and it facilitates far more than just money transfer. It facilitates the value transfer of human communication, connection, and sovereignty. So, because I want to cater to my mind of 6 months ago, why Bitcoin? Why, like, bro, Dogecoin's like hot now, Elon Tree. Like, why is Bitcoin the technology answer here?
Because ultimately, Bitcoin is the only true sovereign asset on the internet. If you look at every other chain that exists, it's effectively owned by a company. Let's go to the second largest, Ethereum. It's owned by a company, and it's based upon a new proof of stake model. But ultimately, this guy, Vitalik, controls what happens with this asset. He can give some away, he can make, but there's literally an infinite amount to be created, right? So we have a digital finite asset. And if you understand how Bitcoin is created, it's actually, I was talking to Marty at dinner about this. He brought this up to me the other night. It's actually an idea that's over 100 years old. Bitcoin is a 100-year-old idea. And it came up from like the Rockefeller ages they said that we should create a currency that's based upon a mineral and a mineral right that could be mined from the earth. And if you think about how Bitcoin is created, Bitcoin takes energy in a format, a molecule of energy, creates computer hashes to derive that actual coin. From that coin, it can turn into the pipes that move data across the decentralized internet, and then be able to distribute value to people peer-to-peer without anyone in the middle. It has this purity sense to it. It has a finite amount. There's only 25 million available. And the fact is, nobody controls it. If you're trying to create something that's sovereign, that's something free, is that you have to give the most extreme option. And if you're going to build it on money, you have to build it on a decentralized monetary network, which happens to be Bitcoin. We had no choice if we wanted to really be the ethoses of what we wanted to do. There's a bunch of, but that comes with challenges, because what we're doing, a lot of people are not. They're not looking at this. They're not saying, they're like, you can't build on Bitcoin that way. It's impossible. It will never scale. We know that it will eventually. We know that we're early. And that's the point, is we know it's the only answer. It's the true answer, but it's just going to take us time.
Yeah. And again, I know we've got a lot to get into, but what would you say to the people who are like, well, you're leaving people to their own accord. There's nobody governing people. Because I think we live in a society where, without knowing it, the frog began to sit in a pot of boiling water. It didn't know that it was going to be sitting in to boil. I think within the old paradigm of big tech, we've trained ourselves to believe we are dangerous until proven safe. So we have this inherent thing of we have to protect people from themselves. 99.9% of people I know are great people. And I think the world we all want to live in is you're a great person until proven otherwise. And so I think with social media, there's a fear tactic that some people just think needs to be there of you can't let people be free and sovereign. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, even though I just spoke my thoughts at you in the form of a question, Justin.
No, I think you're right, is that we're outgrowing these models. So I completely agree with you, and I think that it was good for a time, and I think we also have to take into account like what are the true effects on social media on everyone? Like the true impacts of what's happening in the world. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. Like, some of you have kids in the audience. Like, this thing is effectively keeping you addicted to be as much as possible. And if you ask the question, you're like, okay, why is Facebook manipulating me into ideas and all these things? Why is Instagram? It's because that's their business. That's what they do. They get up every day, they have an algorithm that knows about you more than anybody else, and it's the business model. So it's the opportunity that, yes, freedom is important and all these things matter, but it comes back to how do we rethink the business model, shift the way consumers communicate, and those are the impacts that will begin to change the world.
Hell yeah. I love that, brother. Well, should we work our way through this?
Yeah, we
and
have
act
some
like we know
stuff.
what
This
we're
was our little 15-minute opener, I think. So I think a good topic would be, don't just get paid to create, get paid to consume.
Mm-hmm.
I love this topic because I think this is like a really interesting opportunity about like some of the details in the application. So because we're built on money, what happens is that, you know, we have models right now called like OnlyFans, right? So it's a single directional model.
They know about it.
Yeah, Angie has one. It's right here in the front. Huge audience on a full-time job on OnlyFans. But the way those apps work, right? It's that you consume and you point to one direction. When you build an entire technology on top of money, you have the opportunity for omnidirectional payments. Everyone gets paid. And then everyone becomes a professional consumer of content. Not just you, Angie, as a creator, but like, what if like someone in your community like posted a super funny meme, that's someone that you love, your group. Would it be cool to give that person like a penny for that funny video? Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I know with creators fans want to support them. I remember a few months ago, my wife and I were coming off a plane. I was in the restroom and some old lady came up to Amber and gave her $70 to give to me. She's like, I just appreciate JP. I don't know how to support him. Please give him the $70. It was great. I'm like, why didn't she give us more? What the hell's wrong with her? She's not a real fan. So, but when there's creators out there, that's what their fans want to do. They want to support them in one way or another. And it's the challenge has been, how do we allow that support to happen? And here, you can see the funny meme your creator puts out. You can see their video or a thought they put out, and you can just tap a button and you've tipped them, you know, an amount that you determine, which is beautiful. And then, as you mentioned, you crowdsource wisdom from the community. I saw in my community on Zion today, someone posted something. I'm like, that's not even intelligent, but I want to tip them because I appreciate them being there. So there they are, getting supported.
And I think what we're seeing, to me, what's really exciting about this is, you know, for the creators in the room and the creators listening digitally, like, we're now seeing the beginning of the next layer of the creator economy, right? About 10 years ago, a little company called YouTube started having regular people put videos on the internet, and then those people start getting paid for them. Now the future of the world is, how do the followers of those people get paid? And now we're seeing an example through what we're building. The next layer of what we're calling the creator economy at large.
Yeah, and it's kind of like if you're there with, you know, your friend in the living room and you owe them $70. How does it feel to have to say, oh, cool, here's a $70. Let me give it to Justin. Then he'll give it to 3 other people. They're all going to take their cut. And then you'll get some of the money that I'm trying to give you.
Yeah.
It's like that. I think that's part of the old model. We don't have to be in that model anymore. It's there. You can be. But the new model is, because we're built on Bitcoin, it's a transaction from me to you, or you to me, preferably you to me. Which I think is exciting.
Yeah, and it's also like equating like this app is not like, yes, it's on your Apple phone right now, right? And that's the first instance that you're seeing it. But nothing like it is like most apps on your Apple phone, because what's happening is that all it is a display screen for your private server. This is your private Bitcoin server with some great code on it that knows it has these connections that it can make across the world. But it's just a display screen, right? Constantine and I were talking yesterday. He's like, why don't we use this website as the display screen instead of just using this app as the window? I was like, yeah, we should do that. So we're gonna launch just a web version, a PWA that does it. So it's like remembering that this is your own, when you spin up, you're not an account in someone else's database. This is your sovereign machine.
I'm curious, as you're listening to this, like what it does and how it does it, who here thinks this sounds a little bit technical and a little intimidating to understand?
Sorry.
Cool. No, it's great. It's very technical stuff. But here's the beautiful thing. It's got a user interface where you can be blind, deaf, and dumb. You hear nothing. You don't understand how it works, but you get on and it works for you. Because it's got the user interface. No longer do you have to be the Bitcoiner techie understanding all this stuff to take advantage of the Bitcoin wisdom. I know for myself, I didn't buy Bitcoin until, 4 months ago because I didn't know how. So needing a technical understanding for me is a huge barrier to entry. And that's one of the things I love is just simply a easy user interface that makes the complex tech stuff just irrelevant to actually understand, but it's pretty fascinating to understand it if you care to.
Yeah, and I think that's like, one of the big purposes of tonight was like, we want to really share with you guys a lot of details of this thing, because I know this journey is going to be very difficult. Like we started today, and what we're trying to do is fundamentally like start a movement. This is not a company. Like this is a fundamental movement. Like Bitcoin is a movement. Bitcoin is a change in the world. And we want to share with you guys as our friends the intricacies of this, and for you to know what this all means for the world. This is not just another app launch. Like the truth is it's not. This is not like you're supporting JP and I and this company. It's not. This is a fundamental change in how the world wants to communicate and move not only messages, but move money. And that's a very different goal to like try to achieve. And it requires all of us.
Yeah, amen. Should we talk a little bit about owning your audience?
Yeah, that's great. This is good.
We wrote it. I'm curious, show of hands here, who has some level of online audience here?
Oh, yeah.
Cool, pretty much. Anybody have an audience bigger than mine? Now that we all know our places. Dude, my narcissism diagnosis is running strong.
You're doing great, bro. Keep it up.
So
let's laugh it out.
As I mentioned, I don't have a technical mind. I don't get excited about technology. I get excited about what technology can do for me and the people I love. And one of the things that I got most stoked about in the early stages, Justin sharing with me what this vision was that I get to own my audience and that creators get to own your audience. So whatever size your audience is, do you realize you don't own it? On Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, like all the things, again, gratitude to them, but you don't own your audience. It can be taken away like that because it's on their servers. Not your own node, which is basically your own server. It's literally on their servers. It's many people have had their audiences taken away for speaking out with wrong narratives. So, I'm blessed. I think online my audience is over 5 million people, subscribers, and that's a mansion I have built in someone else's backyard. And that's not security. I'm glad it's there. I don't want it to go anywhere, yet I don't have a lot of control whether that goes anywhere or not, and whether I have access to that beautiful mansion that I've built and provides for me and my family. So the difference is on Zion, you own your audience. It's on your node. The team at Zion couldn't take it away, even if they wanted to. Is that right?
The most extreme sense, and this is like a really important thing about like when you build open source and you build it in these interesting ways, is right now the way to get on the app is we provide you hosted nodes, right? So these are hosted virtual machines that have all the software built onto them. They're dedicated to you. Constantine put up some open source code on a sandbox yesterday that allows, if you have some sort of AWS server, that actually runs L&D. You can actually build that sandbox. There's 4 companies that host open source projects where you can actually buy a Raspberry Pi and stick it in your house, add some code, and now you can spin up and be on Zion with attaching a relay. So effectively, the only way to take you off, if you had it sitting in your house, was someone would need to come and rip it out of the wall. The connections that you're building in this new internet is not a connection as a row in a database. You're building channels, payment channels with people through money. Every one of your audience members is connecting with you through a channel. They're moving payments through you through the Lightning Network. That's how the systems work. And we cannot turn you off because if it's sitting in your house, that's your own system. We can't come off and rip it out of the wall, and we won't. There's an interesting thing about like the way social applies these like laws, right? They say like, you know what, we won't do that, right? So the traditional, I think the traditional very right-wing social media companies, what they do is they just say they won't. There's a big difference between they won't and they can't. We can't. And that's powerful. Like that, the idea of that is just inherently very powerful. Yeah. And the connections that you're building with your audience is not a connection through a database, it's a connection with money.
Yeah, amen to that. And a question, I know it came up early for me, came up with some of our investors, and I know you and I have talked about it. It's an important question because you hear that, and one of my first objections was like, all right, Justin, like nobody supports free speech more than me, but like a social platform, like what if people start doing heinous, illegal stuff? If there's child pornography or terrorism being facilitated, are you just going to allow that?
So illegal is illegal, regardless. Like you should go to f***ing jail if you're doing illegal things. That's number one. Like if you're a terrorist, you go to jail. So what we've done and like our steps of kind of service in this is that we think an open ledger is very important. So if you go to communities.zion.com, .getzion.com, you will see every single community ever created by anybody. Anybody that wanted to create a community is there publicly for everyone to see. If we get to the point where we have a federal action saying, we get the FBI calling us like, hey dude, this thing's got child porn, what we do is we take that off our directory. We take it off the public ledger directory. But it's responsible for the FBI to go take out that node themselves. We're gonna cooperate with everyone that needs to cooperate. But for us, we want to follow the law. If you're doing illegal shit, you should go to jail.
Yeah, free speech doesn't mean free actions to do felonies.
Yeah,
by any
of course
stretch.
not. Of course not.
Yeah.
But what's important is that there are limitations in what we can do, right? There are limitations with the technologies. Like I just explained, if you're self-hosting in your home, I'm not going to come to your house and rip it out of the wall, but the FBI probably will.
And another question is like, okay, like free speech, that's great, but what if people start having hate speech on there, which I know is the world we live in. Like some people like to define anything they disagree with as hate speech, and then there's classical definitions of hate speech, and in our system, it's peer-based governance. So if you don't like what someone's saying, if they're being an objective asshole, it would be a great idea to stop following them.
Yeah, and I think we should talk a little bit about like this. There's anti-spam features that I think are really interesting. So when you're built on money, and this is something that there's open source code that we use from a company called Sphinx that we enabled into our staking feature. So if you're in a community, and you'll see this when you join a community in JP's community, there's a thing called price to stake and then time to stake, right? So what happens is that when you make a comment onto a creator's community, a certain amount of Bitcoin goes in escrow. And if the creator decides to delete your comment for spam, for hate speech, for whatever they want, because remember, you're in their private community, you lose that Bitcoin. So we've created incentives based upon money to stop spam. Why do people spam on the internet? Because spam's free. Yeah. You could go make thousands of comments, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. But what if the consequences were cash?
Yeah. You know, like the hordes of online cancer that get a sense of significance by just irritating people, trying to provoke through hate and it's profitable now. And you get them kicked out.
Yeah, and it doesn't create an incentive. They won't do it. We know for a fact that just won't happen. But again, it comes back to no one, like you can't build this unless you build it this way.
Yeah.
You couldn't build this thing if you did not build it on Lightning and Bitcoin and these open source protocols. It just doesn't happen. You have to build it on the rails that is money, which the complexity of the technology is really important. And I hope it gives people like hints of like, this thing is not like, not just us, by the way, like Bitcoin is a thing that will change the internet. End of story, because these things will exist. We're not going to be the first. It's going to happen a lot. We just want the support of the movement. It's that idea, what we're trying to do.
Oh yeah, brother. Well, and by the way, we're going to do our very best to get to some Q&A. So if you have questions that come up, whether it's more explanation or just you want to know the secrets of life according to Justin and I, feel free to mentally note those.
Not me. Privacy first. Open source?
Dude, I love open source.
This is cool. This is cool.
Why open source, Justin?
Okay, so most companies, and I'm guilty of this because when I started this project in September of last year, I had no idea what an open source project was because I built a business and I was like, NDA, sign this. This is the word fucking proprietary was used almost every day in my deck speeches. We have a proprietary algorithm that fucking does whatever. And then open source came around and I got to meet, some amazing developers. And our code is open source. And we have forked off of some amazing open source projects. The way we were built was based upon previous projects that did certain things and we just wanted to make it better in our own way. What open source means is that our code is publicly available for anyone to see, anyone to use under an MIT license. If someone wanted today to take the time to go and change the name of everything that we do, use the exact same app and change the logo, they could spin up a company that does the exact same thing tomorrow if they had the engineering resources. And we are fine with that. We're fine with the fact that people can create a movement around this type of technology. Because sovereignty doesn't just come from one company. It comes from a movement of people. And our code is open source for this particular reason. We encourage it. If there's a developer out there that says like, you know what, I want to tweak, do these things, please fork the code, take the code, do as you wish. Because this is a change that we have to make as a society. We don't want to be closed source systems. We have no idea, like when Facebook, for example, or WhatsApp, it's a better example. They tell you the messages are encrypted. You have no idea if they actually are because there's nobody to check the code. You have no clue what they do. You have no concept of where they store things. Go look at our GitHub. It's publicly available. You can see everything we do. You can see where we store everything. You can see how we do. And that's the importance of what we want to provide in the world.
Yeah. And I love that I'd love to be the one, like I chose to do open source, but I was like, I don't know how to define open source. But one of the things that I love about you as a human is you would want to go open source because to me, that speaks to your faith in humanity because I don't think sovereignty and control really exist in the same space. I think they're antithesis of each other. So I just love that good faith token in humanity of like, hey, we're doing this, building Zion, and guess what? We're not building it for us. If we were, control would be the ecosystem. But my experience of you is the whole vision is this is a movement that you were asked to create for humanity. Justin, he looks like a humble guy, but son of a bitch never needs to work another day in his life. I'll tell you that. So he's not doing this for himself. So I love that you don't need much from this. In my experience of you as a friend, I know how much you want to serve humanity, and I think the fact that you chose open source is really a testament to that.
Thank you, brother. And I think you got to give yourself, I want to translate the credit to you. Because
let's hear more.
Yeah, I mean, look, because the reality is, and this is just from my inference, is like, this would have not worked without you. And even at, like, look, today is day one. But the point is that what this type of a movement takes is a catalyst. Because, I mean, we have some longtime Bitcoiners in the room, my friends in the middle, and one of those things, like, they are, like, what we were talking about at some point was, like, the only way this Bitcoin thing is going to scale in the way we're talking about it is we need people like you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lead us not to the first million or 100,000 that understand it in their own echo chamber. Is that our goal is to tell the world that this exists. Our goal is to tell the world that Lightning is a thing. It's a real thing. And it's a real thing that can help us change the face of the internet. It's the beginning, and we're just there. We're like, we're talking about, like, if you were sitting in Silicon Valley in 1995, that's what you're doing right now in Austin, Texas. What we're talking about is the beginning of the new internet. And people like you are going to bring that to the world, because we have an opportunity right now with creators to bring that to reality. So I got to give you a ton of credit, JP. I couldn't be doing any of this without you.
Oh, right on, brother. Well, I'm honored. And I think all of us in this room have the vision of Zion being a beautiful success for the world, because it's a facilitator of freedom and sovereignty. And being realistic, maybe Zion fails, but another iteration of the same thing is the future. Obviously, we hope that Zion is it, but I think the technology won't fail.
According to Matrix lore, there's been 7 Zions. If anyone has a...
If anyone
Yeah,
lives
to
in their
clarify,
mother's
by the
basement.
way, for everyone, the name came from the Matrix. It was the last human civilization without machines, and we felt it as a fitting name for what we're doing.
Yeah.
Considering everything.
Oh, yeah.
Should we ask some questions from our friends?
Yeah, have them ask us questions.
Have them ask us questions?
Yeah, any of y'all have questions?
Hi, Angie.
Yeah.
I'm curious, for creators who are working with brands, how do you think the brands will integrate into this fascinating system? Because it's almost like you're taking away the middleman. So then let's say a brand wants to pay you as a creator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Will they come in and then how will this work financially?
Can I take this one?
Please.
Or will creators not need to work with a third-party brand because their community will be paying them?
The more the merrier with income streams. But
So this is, if anyone knows, like JP kind of set it up for me a little bit. I built the first app on the App Store that connected a brand to an influencer. Built one of the first influencer marketing agencies in the world. That was in 2013. Sold the business in 2016. So this is all I've done for 10 years: is get creators paid for content.
Yeah.
So when this came about, I was like, this is the future of influencer marketing. Why? Imagine that you get paid from a brand, and then that morning you go to your community page and you're like, hey guys, I got $100,000 from this brand. I'm gonna send you guys all 1,000 sats to watch this video I'm about to push, because you helped me get that 100,000, and I'm gonna give you 35% of the proceeds. That's the future of influencer marketing.
damn, bro, you didn't share that with me. I love that
That's
vision.
looking good one. That's good. Looking good.
Yeah, we should remember that.
Yeah, it's called mass payments. We're working on this button right now where the creator of the community can instantaneously pay every single person that's attached to their community with one button. That also doesn't exist, but you can do it on top of money. That's the point. All these innovations will eventually be done. Is like, you have 10,000 people following you, right? Inside of your community. Imagine you could just hit one button and pay them all at the same time. Fuck yeah, dude. Yeah, those eyes. I like those eyes. Yeah, it's cool.
Hell yeah, brother. Dude, I'm stoked about that. Yeah. Other questions?
Do we want to take live questions from these cameras?
Well, let's take a live
question.
A
Luke's
live
story.
live.
I have a doomsday question.
Ooh.
What happens internet kill switch gets hit, because everyone, the powers that be, the lunatics running things, decide that they want to shut it down and be communist China or something. And B, in a more micro way, what's the backup plan right now if the Apple App Store is like, fuck you, you're gone?
Yeah. First answer, I have no idea, and it doesn't matter if that happens because we're all doomed anyway. So our app is irrelevant.
Get your gun is the answer to that
Learn
question.
how to shoot a gun is
Would it
my
work on a
first.
cellular network?
What?
It would work on a cellular network though, but would it still work because it's all dependent on servers that don't use that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're running your node in your house, you'd have to have power in your house, and you still have internet pipes, right? So we have we still have the internet that we have to work on top of, but Starlink is coming. We ordered our first one. It should be here in a few months, I think. So that is the eventual option, is just beam up Scotty, go straight to a satellite. But look, your second question is very, very, very real. Our plan is not Apple for the future. Our plan is a progressive web application. It's a PWA that allows anyone to access from any browser. The only thing that we need to overcome is technical challenges with encrypting keys. You have to, what we're doing is a very encrypted, there's a lot of encrypted cryptography that's being done on the device itself that allows you to see messages that another person can't see and can't hack. Like there's a middle of the man attack where someone can hack the IP address on a browser. We want to prevent those issues, so we need to figure out, these are technical challenges that I think we'll get over eventually, but it's how do we store our keys in the browser, right? Because we'll talk a little bit. Should we talk about keys?
We should.
You're talking about keys.
Yeah.
You want to talk about keys?
I will.
Does that answer your question? We're gonna be browser company so very soon.
So, I didn't know what keys are. There's your private keys, there's your pub keys, your public keys. I didn't know what those were before I got on Zion and started working with a team. So, first off, why are there keys and what do they do for a person?
So there's a lot of complex cryptography happening on these nodes and these machines. Everything needs to be behind a private key. The only person that should be able to access your messages, your Bitcoin, the way that you communicate is all behind your private keys. And you're the only one in the world who has access to those. So when you actually log into the app for the first time, there's a video from JP. So the way it works is you get a connection string. That connection string turns on your node for the first time. Then you go in. Then you have to back up your keys. There's a video of JP doing that. Those keys allow you to back up the instance, but that's also how everything gets stored, is with those backup keys. It's basically like your actual keys of your house. You're the only one that has it. It's the only one that can get in. But it's what enables all the cryptography that we have, that one node can talk to another node that can't talk to another node. And it's what makes the system somewhat unhackable. That's the point, is like we don't want access to anything. Like we as a company, and I keep putting Constantine because he's our lead engineer sitting in the middle, is that we have nothing to do with what you're doing because it's your own virtual machine. You control your Bitcoin, you control your keys, you control your message. The only thing that's happening with us is we're just the browser window where you open the thing up. But eventually we might not exist. The point is your Lightning node is the key to everything. Yeah. And they're all behind your private keys. Garen Jones.
I have a question. So tomorrow's future is today's kids. Because I hear you saying about this is where we're going in the future and in the future, and it's like that's the kids of today. And this room has a bunch of adults in here, and I hear the adult lingo. How would you describe this to a 5-year-old who is tomorrow's future?
You want to take
a great question. Yeah, man. How I would describe it is, what the platform lets you do is connect and communicate to who you want without mommy and daddy telling you not to. Yeah. I'm curious, what are the top 3 insights you learned from what I just shared?
Stay away from my kids.
Uncle JP is not babysitting. Garen, if I could real quick, Garen, I love your question. I gave you obviously not a complete answer, but one of the reasons I love your question is I don't feel like I can answer that really well. And I think it might have been Einstein who said something like, to understand something well, you have to be able to explain it simply. And one of the reasons why I'm on this team is to help be a bridge between a technical world that the Bitcoin world kind of was exclusive, a closed ecosystem, and then there's outsiders. But we want everybody to have access to the freedom and sovereignty that the system offers. So being able to explain things very simply in kid language, that's the best bridge possible. So I personally, I like feeling the sensation of like, ooh, I don't have a great answer for that, but I'm going to find one, and it's because of you. So thank you for that, brother.
And I want to go in with that, because you're right. We're basically on day one, and we don't have a proper answer. And I think that the point of this thing is that what we wanted to share with our closest friends is like, this is going to be hard, and we're going to need help. We're going to need help along the way. My feeling is that we're going to have a lot of people that want to turn us down along the way. We have a lot of people that want to like shut us down along the way. Like, no, this shouldn't exist. Why? No way this should exist. There's a lot bigger powers that be than what we're working with at this point. And so the point of all this is that we don't know today. We don't know how it's all going to work because we're starting off. But we know where we want to go, and we need people like you to help us take it there. Steph, you're next. Hi, what's your name?
Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
It's not a real name.
So I know for y'all this is mostly about movement, but how does the company of Zion make money?
So hosted nodes are available. So because everyone has full sovereignty of their node, they have to pay for them. So just like you, like if you have a website, you pay somebody to host that website for you. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So there's that element. So if you don't want to go buy a virtual machine or an actual Raspberry Pi, do all this software stuff in your own house, we will provide you a hosted node. We make a small margin on each of those hosted nodes. Additionally, once fees are taken out of our network, for example, like if you're a creator and you want to take funds from Zion into your River account, which is your custodial wallet, we take a 2% routing fee when the money moves out of the network. If we compare that to our lead competitors, OnlyFans, 30%. Patreon, 10 to 20%. And we take 2. Why? Because we don't have 10 layers of chains between us. It's you, the creator, and it's Bitcoin. Yeah. It's right in the middle. So we have 2 models of revenue streams. We're not a company that remember I talked about business models? The problem with all these companies was like, we want users and then we'll figure out a way to make money. No. Here it is. You want to get on this thing? It costs money. It's not free. You thought Facebook was free? It's not. You're the product. You're the product. In this sense, the product is the technology, and that's how we make money.
Yeah, upfront, transparent, honest, $9 a month fee, 2% withdrawal fees.
Yeah, and by the way, that will go down. Like as the technology improves, those fees will go down because a node is very challenging to operate. But my thoughts on what the future will look like is the node software will actually live on your device. It will eventually live on the phone that you have. Are we right, Ryan? Yeah, well. Yeah, we're getting there. There he is. It will eventually live on the actual device that doesn't require this virtualized machine. It doesn't require this. Because remember, these nodes, in order to interact, and I want to get into a little bit of intricacies real quick on the tech, is that the reason you pay for it is because it has 24/7 uptime. In the middle of the night, if someone wants to send you a payment or someone wants to access JP, the only way they can send you something is your node has to be online and on. It has to be running as uptime just like a regular website. So you need a service to provide all of that uptime and all that service. And we have a company that helps us do that as well. Thank you for your question. Steph.
2 questions, if that's okay.
Yes.
First one is, what's your major definition of the next round of what success looks like for this movement or this company or this company? And the second question is, what do you need from us to make it that?
Question.
You want me to tackle this from like a strategic business perspective, or what would be best?
Yeah.
So you asked a little bit about business success, if that's
Essentially,
correct.
what's the next milestone to define success for this movement, this company?
Yeah, I mean, so
I'm sure they're right?
what we're doing is we want to increase network capacity and effectively double our network capacity every 30 days. So our milestone for this month was to hit 1,000 nodes. This morning we hit exactly 350 are on the network today. And we just stopped them because they broke a little piece of our code. So we had to stop, and we have a wait list of over 3,000. So we are confident that we will hit our network capacity of this month and double network capacity of next month. And in the next 6 months, our goal is to double every single month. And if you follow some Moore's laws, if we double every month, in 9 months, we'll have 1 million people on this thing. if that's possible. That's the business milestone that I like to look at in terms of what are we doing, of putting nodes in the hands of people that understand what these things are.
Yeah.
What was your second question?
What do you need from us being people in this room and the people that are your ideal audience? What do you need from us to hit those milestones?
Yeah. One thing I'd share is if you see Zion as a way to express your life's purpose, whether that's connecting with individual friends, transacting Bitcoin, or facilitating your community, the ask would be consider jumping on Zion. So I think there's an objection that can come up with any new platform, and if I can call us a platform, feels kind of old-fashioned, but one of the objections is, oh shit, we're at day one. There's nobody on there. It'll waste my time to form a community. Like, oh, there's it's not even that many people. And that's a valid objection if someone doesn't want to do that. But what I would say to that is by being on integrating people into Zion, you're helping build a digital infrastructure of freedom and sovereignty, which is contributing it's helping company success, but it's helping the movement of freedom and sovereignty in the world, because it's the digital infrastructure of freedom and sovereignty. By being on the network, you're literally helping build that. And then the other way I look at that and speak to that is, I know people who got on YouTube back in 2008. They're terrible, but they have like a 6 million person audience because they were a pioneer doing the land grab first. So one way to look at it is like, shit, there's nobody really on Zion. But it's like, dude, then you are much more discoverable if you have your community in the community ledger in the early days versus day 1000. So
there is a growth advantage for being an early adopter then? Such as, being on YouTube early and establishing yourself early on Instagram as an example. I don't know if it's an algorithmic thing.
Yeah, well,
We have no algorithm.
there's no algorithms. We don't like psychological manipulation, but there's a community. There's a community ledger where whatever your community name would be, people can see that, check it out, and like, cool, I might want to join that. So if you're 1 out of 500 versus 1 out of 500,000, there's just much more discoverability, along with, the altruistic component of helping to build the digital infrastructure of freedom and sovereignty.
I'll add that patience is the ultimate thing that I would say from our friends in our community, is that if you were in the room when some of the first internet companies that you use every day, if you were there the first day that they were put on the internet, you would understand that they don't look like what they look like today. Remember, Instagram took 6 years to have video. Facebook took 10. So the patience of understanding that we're not building an application like what it's built, and alternatively, we're building it on a stack that arguably hasn't been done at scale before. So the ask that I have is patience, because we are in this for the long term. I hope this is the last company that I ever build. And it's gonna take time, and things are gonna break, and things are not gonna be perfect, and things are gonna be wrecked, because we're trying something alternatively that has never been done before. We're not another app on the App Store. We're not another app on your phone. We're trying something else, being built from something different, and patience is the only way that we'll get there.
Yeah. And maybe if there's more questions, maybe we can get to them, but just to shut down the live video feed within the hour, if we close up, brother, well, if someone's watching this online and they say like, cool, I want to check out Zion, what do they do?
At this point, I would go to our app on the iOS store. We're only on Apple right now. Request an invite, request a code. You'll be put on our wait list. I would say join our Telegram group, Telegram, Get Zion. Go take a look at our Twitter, go take a look at our Instagram. But Telegram is probably the place that a lot of conversations are happening right now, is just be supportive and patient. and understand that like we are trying to do what we can. We're trying to get as many nodes on the network as possible. We have all of our engineers working on it. So just look at what we're trying to do. And I think on those particular social channels would be great. Or put your email in and we'll try to email you as soon as we have some things up.
Yeah, which is getzion.com. And, we've got a wait list for nodes. I mean, Success on day one sold out within 30 minutes, which was a great problem to have. And if you jump on the wait list, you enter the queue and you'll be receiving your node and then the line.
And we'll have node drops. I think like just like people have clothing drops, like we'll have node drops. Like we don't know when that's going to be, but it'll be a 500 nodes at a time drop. So we'll have node drops available.
Right on. And last thing I'd say is knowing that Zion is just it's a facilitator. It's a facilitator of something far bigger than the company or individuals. It's a facilitator of the movement of freedom and sovereignty. And I've been blessed. I've been able to travel around the country nonstop for many years, but especially the past year and a half when the world's been changing. And if you're delusional enough to watch the news and pretend like that might be true, the news would have you think people are cheering for their freedoms to be taken away. My experience is far different than that. I was just in San Francisco. I've been in Portland. The cities that you might think are like, the most like locked down, take our freedoms, protect us from ourselves. Portland to Florida, and we sold out 12 shows in Portland. There are freedom-loving people vastly outnumbering what I would call the fear-based people. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just you're either functioning from freedom or fear, and they're different energies. They're opposites. So I just want to end by saying the movement of freedom looks bleak if you watch the news and you believe it. But if you turn the news off, open your eyes, and travel around or just hear my experience of it, the movement of freedom is powerful. There's so much momentum, and that's why we're very happy to add a little bit of momentum if it serves people through the facility of Zion, because freedom ain't slowing down anytime soon, and I'm proud of that. So with that said, brother, it's been a joy.